What will you do if you traveled hundreds of kilometers to surprise the man you loved on his birthday, only for a half-naked man to open his door? Will you stay and ask questions? Will you wait for your boyfriend to come out, or will you turn around and leave? Now, let me make it even more difficult. What if you have heard stories about men who were married to women but secretly involved with other men? What if, standing at your boyfriend's door, you suddenly remembered all those stories? Will you still stay? Or will you thank God for showing you the truth before getting to say I do? That was exactly what happened to me. My name is Mmachi, and the day I thought God had delivered me from the worst mistake of my life was actually the day I made the biggest mistake of my life. But before I tell you what happened at that door, let me take you back to where everything began. Because if you had known Kelvin the way I knew him, you probably would have made the same mistake I did. I met Kelvin on Snapchat. At first, he was just another person replying to my story. I didn't know his name would eventually become one of the most important names in my life. I didn't know the stranger sending me messages would become the man I trusted. I didn't know he would help me through some of the most difficult moments of my university years, and I certainly didn't know that one day I would travel all the way to Port Harcourt with a birthday cake in my hands, only to see something that would make me question everything I thought I knew about him. Looking back now, I wish I had asked one question that morning. Just one. Who is this man? Because that one question might have changed my entire life. I was in my final year at the university when Kelvin first appeared on my Snapchat. It started with something so ordinary that I didn't even remember it for long. I had posted a picture of myself on my story, and a few minutes later, I saw a message. You have a beautiful smile. I looked at it and smiled. I had received messages like that before, so I didn't think much of it. I simply replied, "Thank you." I expected the conversation to end there, but it didn't. The next day, Kelvin replied to another story. Then he replied again. Soon, we started talking. At first, it was nothing serious. He asked what I was studying. I told him. I asked what he did for a living. He told me he worked in Port Harcourt. We talked about school, work, food, movies, and the funny things that happened in our everyday lives. He wasn't pushing. He didn't immediately ask me for inappropriate pictures. He didn't start talking about sex. He didn't even rush to ask me to become his girlfriend. He simply talked to me, and somehow I enjoyed talking to him. Before long, I began looking forward to seeing his name on my phone. If I woke up and saw a message from Kelvin, my day started differently. If he didn't call at night, I would wonder what had happened. One evening, he called me. That phone call lasted almost 3 hours. We talked about everything. At some point, I laughed so loudly that my roommate turned around from her bed and looked at me. "Who are you talking to?" I covered the phone. "Nobody." She looked at me suspiciously. "Who is making you laugh like that?" "Nobody," I replied again. She laughed. "Okay, oh, I think it's that Snapchat guy." I rolled my eyes, but deep down I knew she was right. Kevin was becoming someone, and someone I was beginning to care about. A few weeks later, he traveled to Owerri to see me. I was nervous before we met. After all, there is something different about meeting someone you have only known through a phone screen. But the moment I saw him, the nervousness disappeared. We talked, we laughed, we ate, we walked around, and I just knew there was something different about him. Our relationship continued to grow, and then Kelvin had a conversation with me that changed the way I saw him. One night, while we were talking on phone, he suddenly became serious. "Mmachi, I want to ask you something. Are you serious about me?" I laughed nervously. "Why are you asking?" "Because I don't want us to waste our time." I became quiet and he continued. "I like you. I care about you, and I'm not looking for something temporal." My heart started beating faster. "So, what are you looking for?" He answered without hesitation. "Marriage." I I didn't know what to say because marriage sounded serious, but somehow hearing him say it made me happy. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. I don't want us to sleep together before our marriage. I was surprised. Are you serious? And then he explained that he wanted us to have a relationship that wasn't built around sex. If we are truly going to marry, we can wait. I respected him for that and I agreed. We made that decision together. No sex before marriage. It became one of the boundaries of our relationship. I visited him in Port Harcourt once during my school break, but I didn't sleep in his house. He respected my decision. I respected his, and that made me trust him even more. Then, things became difficult for me at school. My parents were doing their best, but sometimes the final year expenses became overwhelming. There were days when I would sit in my room and calculate the money I had left, wondering how I was going to survive until the next payment from home, and the whole thing made me to withdraw. Kelvin noticed, and so he asked me, Mmachi, what's wrong? You have been giving me a cold shoulder. I am fine, I replied. No, you are not. I eventually told him. He asked me how much I needed. I hesitated because I didn't want him to think I was with him because of money. The next day, he said something huge. From that day, he helped me. He supported me. He became the person I could call when things were difficult. And because of that, I began seeing him differently. He wasn't just my boyfriend. He was the man I was beginning to imagine as my husband. I even told one of my friends about him. She asked me, what makes Kelvin different? I thought about it for a moment, then I answered, he makes me feel safe. I genuinely believed that. I trusted him. I loved him, and that was why, when his birthday came closer, I decided I wanted to do something special. I didn't want to simply call him and sing the normal happy birthday song. I wanted to surprise him. After everything he had done for me, I wanted him to feel appreciated. I bought him a beautiful wristwatch. I bought perfume with other fine things, and without telling him anything, I traveled down to Port Harcourt. I was going to appear at his door his birthday. I imagined his reaction. I imagined him opening the door and seeing me standing there with the gifts and cake. I imagined him saying, Mmachi, what are you doing here? And I will laugh and tell him, happy birthday. I was so excited. I had no idea that within a few hours I would be standing at the same door confused. I sent him a birthday message exactly 12 a.m. He replied almost immediately. Thank you so much, my love. I stared at the message and smiled. If only he knew where I was. Around 6 a.m., I took a taxi to his house. The entire journey, I was imagining how the morning would go. I would knock. He would open the door. I would shout, happy birthday! He will be shocked. Then I will give him his gifts. Maybe we'll go out for lunch. Maybe we'll spend the rest of the day together. I even imagined us taking pictures. I wanted to keep the pictures as memories. By the time I reached this compound, my excitement had doubled. I paid the driver and picked up my bags. The cake was carefully balanced in one hand. The gift bag was in the other. I walked towards his apartment. I could already feel my heart beating faster. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. Still nothing. I checked my phone. I called him. His phone rang, but there was no answer. I smiled. Maybe he's sleeping. I knocked again. This time I heard quick movement inside. My heart jumped. He's awake. I quickly adjusted the cake. I was ready. I heard footsteps approaching the door. The lock turned, the door opened, and then everything changed. A man stood in front of me, not my Kelvin. Guess what? He was wearing only a singlet and a pair of boxers. I stared at him. He stared at me. I looked down, and what I saw made my heart beat very fast. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You are here for my one and only's birthday?" Ah, one and only care. My mouth opened, but no words came out. My heart was pounding. Please, can I see Kelvin? Sure, he is in the bathroom. You will have to wait. Again, bathroom. By this time on a Saturday morning, my heart had already started running. I remembered all those stories I'd heard online, stories people discussed casually, stories about married men who secretly had relationships with other men, stories about women who were married but secretly involved with women, stories about people who lived one life in public and another behind closed doors. I'd always listened to such stories and wondered how someone could hide something so important from the person they plan to spend their life with. Now, standing at Kelvin's door, those stories came rushing back. My eyes moved from the man's face to his body. I felt a sudden wave of fear. Could Kelvin be living the secret life? My mind immediately went to our relationship. The way Kelvin has always insisted that we wait until marriage. The way he had never pressured me. The way he sometimes became distant when certain conversations came up. Things that had once made me respect him suddenly began looking different. My mind started creating explanations. Maybe this is why. The Akama tribe, I suddenly felt foolish. I had traveled all this way. I had spent money I didn't really have. I had planned a beautiful surprise, and now I was standing at his door with a cake while another man was answering me wearing only a singlet and boxers. I felt humiliated. The man said something again, but I barely heard him. My mind was already somewhere else. I was thinking about marriage. I was thinking about my future. I was thinking about children. I was thinking about all the years I could have wasted if I married Kelvin without knowing the truth. Then I whispered, God. The man looked at me. Please come in. Thank you, I replied, but I can't wait for him. Why? He asked. Nothing, I replied. Then I turned around. Wait! I kept walking. Madam, please wait. This time Kelvin came out, but I didn't stop. I could hear his footsteps behind me, but I didn't turn around. I started running. I guess he didn't want to create a scene. Then he stopped. By the time I reached the gate, tears were flowing down my cheeks. The security man looked at me. Madam, are you okay? I didn't answer. I flagged down with taxi, and as the taxi drove away, I cried. I was living with what I believed was the most painful discovery of my life. I pulled out my phone. Kelvin had sent another message. What happened? Did you receive any bad news? What's up with the attitude that you just put up? I stared at it. My fingers trembled. I almost replied. I almost asked, who is that man in your house? But I stopped. I couldn't bring myself to ask. Instead, I switched off my phone, and as the taxi continued to where I stayed, I wiped my tears and told myself something I will later regret more than anything else. Thank God I found out. I truly believed I had been saved. I truly believed Kelvin had a secret life, and because of what I thought I'd seen, I decided I was never going to speak to him again. I had made up my mind. I was done with Kelvin, not temporarily, not until he explained himself. I was done. I didn't want to hear his voice. I didn't want to see his face. And most importantly, I didn't want to hear any explanation that would make me doubt what I believed I had seen. Because in my mind, there was nothing to explain. A man had opened his door wearing only a singlet and boxers. That was enough for me, or at least I thought it was. The moment I got home, I threw myself on my bed. I didn't even unpack my bag. I started crying again. I cried with anger. I cried because I felt deceived. I cried because I kept asking myself the same question. How could Kelvin do this to me? After everything? After all the money he has spent on me? After supporting me through school? After telling me he wanted to marry me? And after insisting that we should wait until marriage? I suddenly felt like a fool. Maybe I trusted him too much. Maybe I'd been blinded by the way he treated me, and maybe I'd mistaken everything for love. Then my phone started ringing. It was Kelvin. I watched it ring. I didn't answer. A few minutes later, he called again. I ignored him. Then a message came. Mmachi, Where are you? Another one came. We need to see. Please don't leave Port Harcourt the way you left my house. Sincerely, you are not being fair to me. Today is my birthday, but you have ruined it for me. What happened? What have I done? I am ready to undo it. He called again and again. I didn't answer. Then another message came. I've been calling you, Mma. Please answer me. I stared at the screen. My fingers moved towards the phone. For 1 second, I wanted to answer. I wanted to ask him directly, who is that man? Why is he in your house? What is going on? But then fear took over me. I imagined him giving me an explanation and I imagined myself believing him. Then I will remain in the relationship. And what if I later discovered that I'd been fooled? No, no, I wasn't going to take that chance. I blocked his number. That was it. At least that was what I thought. Another number called. I knew it was him. I blocked that one too. Another number blocked. Another blocked. I didn't care how many numbers he used. I wasn't going to listen. That evening, my roommate came into the room and found me lying on the bed. She looked at me and knew I wasn't happy. Mmachi, what happened? I started crying again. She became worried. Talk to me. What happened? I finally told her. I told her about Kelvin. I told her about the man standing by his door. I told her how he opened the door. I told her what he was wearing and I told her what I believed. My roommate was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. Mmachi, are you sure? I looked at her. What do you mean, am I sure? You didn't ask the man who he was. That's what I'm saying. You didn't wait for Kelvin. You didn't call Kelvin and ask him, and you just concluded like that? I became irritated. What else do I need to know? She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, I am just saying you should hear him out. I shook my head. No, I won't do that. I know what I saw. She sighed. Okay, if you say so, but I could tell she wasn't completely convinced. Unfortunately, my friends weren't as cautious. When I told one of them what had happened, she immediately said, Thank God you found out before marriage. Another one said, Imagine discovering this after having children. Those words stayed with me. I repeated them to myself. I convinced myself that the heartbreak was actually protection, and because I believed that, I stopped feeling guilty about walking away. For the next few weeks, Kelvin tried everything. He contacted one of my friends. He even sent me a long message through social media. I saw it. I didn't open it, or rather, I opened the first line and immediately closed it. Mmachi, please tell me what I did. That sentence should have made me pause. Instead, I thought, you know what you did. I blocked him everywhere. Then I tried to move on, but moving on wasn't as easy as I thought. There were moments when I missed him, especially at night. I will remember our conversations, the way he used to call me before sleeping, the way he asked if I've eaten, the way he helped me when I didn't have enough money for school, the way he spoke about our future. Sometimes I would open our old messages, read them, then close them again. I missed him, but whenever I started feeling tempted to contact him, I remembered that morning and I would tell myself, no, never and not again. One day, Kelvin tried something different. He traveled to Wiri. He came to my apartment. My roommates told me, Mmachi, Kelvin is downstairs. My heart jumped. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Part of me wanted to go downstairs. Another part of me was afraid. Finally, I said, Tell him I don't want to see him. My roommate was shocked. Mmachi, are you sure? Yes, I am very sure. She went downstairs. A few minutes later, she came back. Mmachi, Kelvin is still there. He does not want to leave. When he's tired of waiting, he will go, I replied. After staying for hours, he eventually left. I sat on the bed. Something inside me hurt because even though I'd convinced myself that Kelvin was the problem, deep down, another part of me still wanted him to fight for me, and he had. He had called, he had messaged, he had traveled to see me, but I refused to listen. Eventually, he stopped. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and slowly, Kelvin disappeared from my life. I told myself it was for the best. I focused on school. I graduated. I started working. Life moved on, but sometimes when I'm alone, I still wondered about him. Was he okay? Had he moved on? Had he found someone else? I would quickly push the thoughts away. I didn't want to know. 2 years passed. Then one afternoon, I was sitting at home when my phone rang. It was my friend. Mmachi, she called. Have you heard? Heard what? Kelvin is married. My heart stopped. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. Then I laughed. Good for him, but my voice didn't sound as confident as I wanted it to. My friend continued. Guess what? He's married to your roommate. You need to see the pictures. The wedding is beautiful. Eh? I screamed. My roommate? Well, good for them. She hung up. I placed my phone on the table. I told myself I didn't care, but that night I couldn't stop thinking about it. Kelvin and my roommates married? I tried to ignore the feeling. Their karma tribe, I couldn't. Eventually, curiosity won. I opened my phone. I searched for his name, and when his wedding pictures appeared on my screen, I felt something I hadn't expected. My heart sank. Truly, my Kelvin was married to my roommates. My roommates didn't bother to tell me. I felt betrayed. But then I saw something that made me sit upright. There was a photograph of Kelvin with a familiar man. It was the man who had opened Kelvin's door that morning. I stared at the screen. Then I saw the caption, "My only brother." I frowned. Brother? I zoomed in, and for the first time in 2 years, I began to question the story I had created in my own mind. I stared at the photograph for so long that my phone screen went dark. I tapped it again. I zoomed in again. Maybe I'd read it wrongly. Maybe the caption said something else. But no, it was right there. My only brother. My heart began beating faster. This doesn't make sense. I stared at the man's face, then at Calvin's. They don't look alike, not even closely. I started scrolling through the wedding pictures. There were so many. Then I looked at the picture of Kelvin's mother. The man that opened that door didn't look like her either. So for Christ's sake, how on earth are they related? Are you sure my roommate has not entered one chance like this? Then I noticed another photograph. The man that opened the door was standing beside an older man. The caption read, "My mom's younger brother and his son." That was when it clicked. The man I met was his cousin. My hand went to my mouth. Cousins? Mmachi. See what you have done to yourself. I stopped breathing for a moment. Cousin. Yes, cousin. Not his lover. Not a stranger. And not the evidence of some secret life. I dropped the phone. For 2 good years, I carried the belief that Kelvin had deceived me. I told myself that God had rescued me and have refused to listen to him. I covered my face with both hands. Oh my God. I started crying. But this time, it wasn't because I thought Kelvin had betrayed me. It was because I was beginning to understand that I had betrayed myself. I had made a decision without asking a single question. Not one. I could have asked, "Who are you?" I could have entered the house. I could have waited 5 minutes. I could have picked Calvin's call. I could have done anything, but I didn't. I simply walked away, and Kelvin had spent months trying to reach me. I remembered all the calls, all the messages, his trip to Wari, his request to see me, his question. Mmachi, please tell me what I did. I had never told him. How could I? I've been too embarrassed to tell him what I thought I had discovered. I had been afraid that saying it aloud would make me look foolish, so I punished him without giving him the chance to defend himself. I looked at the wedding picture again. I laughed through my tears. Then I asked myself the question that haunted me for months. What would have happened if I had simply asked? Maybe Kelvin would have explained everything. Maybe I would have apologized. Maybe would have laughed about how foolish my assumption had been. Maybe he would have still proposed. Maybe I would have been the woman standing behind him or beside him in that wedding photograph. Maybe those children I sometimes imagine having with him would have been real. Maybe I would have been his wife. But look at my life. My fingers trembled as I opened Kelvin's profile. There was one thing I knew. I needed to talk to him. Not to win him back. Not to disturb his marriage and not to make excuses. I simply needed to tell him the truth. For the first time, I needed to explain why I had disappeared. I searched for his number. It was still blocked. I stared at it for several seconds, then I unblocked him. My heart was pounding. I opened our old chats. The last message he had sent 2 years ago was still there. Mmachi, whatever happened, please just tell me. I deserve to know. I read it again and again. Then I began typing. But before I could send anything, another thought stopped me. What if he now hates you? I looked at your sent message, then I deleted it. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photograph. Kelvin standing beside the same man who had opened his door that morning with the caption, "My only brother." Those three words kept playing in my head. The next morning, I finally made up my mind. I was going to call him. Whatever happened after that, I would accept it. I dialed his number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then he answered. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. I couldn't speak. There was silence. Then he said, "Hello?" I swallowed. "Kelvin." He became quiet. I could tell he recognized my voice immediately. "Mmachi." I closed my eyes. "Yes?" Then he asked, "Why are you calling me?" His voice was different. It wasn't the warm voice I remembered. It was guided and careful. "I need to talk to you," I said. "About what?" "About that morning. I mean, the morning of your birthday." Then he said, "Mmachi, that was a long time ago." "I know. So why are you bringing it up now?" "Because I found something." "What did you find?" "Your wedding pictures." He laughed bitterly. "Oh, you saw them?" "Yes, I saw the picture of you and your cousin." He immediately corrected me. "My brother." "Yes, your brother." I struggled to explain. I started crying. "Kelvin, I am sorry." He didn't say anything. I continued. I didn't know how to finish the sentence. He finally asked, "What did you think?" I closed my eyes. "I thought you were." My voice became smaller. "I thought you were involved with him." Then Kelvin sighed. "That was your thoughts? And instead of asking me, you disappeared. You blocked me. You refused to see me when I came to Owerri. You refused to answer any of my calls. You didn't even bother to explain your sudden change. And for 2 years, you allowed me to believe I'd done something terrible without telling me what it was." I couldn't answer because he was right. "I was scared," I whispered. "Scared of what?" My tears wouldn't stop. Then Kelvin said something that hurt more than anything else. "I loved you." I closed my eyes. "Kelvin, I know." "No, you don't." His voice cracked slightly. "I really loved you. I wasn't playing with you. Mmachi, I wanted to marry you. That my birthday was supposed to be very special. I saw you around and I told myself that I would make it memorable by putting a ring on your finger. But thank God it ended the way it did, because how would I have met my wonderful wife?" Dear Karma tribe, that word pained me to my bone marrow. I no go lie. I apologized and ended the call. I cried again. If I'd asked that one question, maybe that wedding picture would have been mine. But life doesn't give people the chance to go backwards. Today, Mmachi is still single, and the problem is that she had not truly forgiven herself. She still wonders whether she even deserves another chance at love, as she's asking us as a community to pray for her and give her advice on possible measures she can take in order to forgive herself and then open up to love again. My dear Karma tribe, we know how we do it here, yeah? But before I leave, there is one lesson I want us to take away from Mmachi's story. Be careful about the things you give your ears to and the things you allow your eyes to see. The things we constantly listen to and watch have a way of entering our minds. And when something enters your mind repeatedly, it can begin to shape the way you think. It can shape what you believe, and it can even shape the way you react to situations. Think about Mmachi. That morning, she didn't actually know who the man standing at Kelvin's door was. She had never seen him before. She didn't ask who he was. She didn't even ask Kelvin. But because she had heard so many stories about men secretly having relationships with men and women secretly having relationships with women, those stories were already somewhere in her mind. So when she saw a man standing at Kelvin's door wearing only singlet and boxers, her mind immediately connected what she saw to what she had heard. She imagined the worst, and that imagination influenced her decision. If Mmachi had not filled her mind with all those stories, would she have reacted differently? Maybe. Perhaps she would have simply asked, "Who are you?" And one simple question would have saved her relationship. That's why we need to guide what we allow into our minds. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 23, "Above all else, guide your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Your heart is influenced by what you repeatedly expose yourself to. So guide your eyes, guide your ears. Be careful about the conversations you constantly listen to. Be careful about the videos you watch. Be careful about the feeds you consume. Be careful about the people whose opinions you allow to become your own opinions. Not everything that is trendy deserves your attention. Not every story you hear deserves to become your belief. And not every experience someone else had will happen to you. Sometimes we hear so many negative things that we begin expecting them everywhere. Someone tells you, "All men cheat." Another person says, "All women are gold diggers." Someone else says, "People from that tribe cannot be trusted." You heard it once, you heard it again, you hear it even 10 times, and before you know it, you begin believing it. Then one day, you meet a perfectly innocent person, but because of everything you have been feeding your mind, you start looking for evidence to confirm what you already believe. That was part of Mmachi's problem. She wasn't seeing Kelvin anymore. She was seeing Kelvin through the lens of everything she had heard. So, my dear Karma tribe, guide your ears and guide your eyes. Feed your mind with truth. Feed it with God's word. Feed it with things that build you rather than things that constantly fill you with fear, suspicion, hatred, and negativity. Because sometimes the battle isn't only about what is happening around you. Sometimes the battle is about what you have allowed to enter your mind. And remember, not every story you hear is your story. Don't allow someone else's experience to make you punish an innocent person. Don't allow rumors to become your reality. And don't allow fear to make decisions that truth and wisdom should make. Again, guide your heart, guide your ears, guide your eyes, because what enters through those gates can eventually influence what comes out through your actions. Mmachi will be in the comments. Please don't crucify her. Let's advise her accordingly as our own. Don't forget to like the story, share it to your loved ones, and subscribe to this amazing channel if you have not already done so. If you have your own story to share, message me via my email, eziafa4@gmail.com. It will be in the description of this video. Until I bring the next interesting story your way, It's a goodbye from here, and God bless you.